Alrighty, I know this isn't going to be super high quality, but we're going to just talk about a few of the new dragons on Ascension today. I did go and tame all of them, but someone else did that and they made a spreadsheet. So theirs is a lot nicer than what I was doing, so I will link their spreadsheet down below. But I will talk about a few of them, some ways that they work, and which ones I think are actually worth using and why. And we'll just go through each category and we'll see. This isn't going to be a super high quality video. Never done a video before, but you know, no one ever makes any guides for Ascension for the most part, and I can never find the information I want to know, so I just have to get it myself. So in case any of y'all were thinking the same, I have done it for you today. So let's start with the green ones. I don't think the green ones are very good for late game. They don't seem to scale that well. They are my pick for leveling, in my opinion. I think they're very good for leveling. The whelp has a a heal for the party, like 5 people. Just kind of nice. I think it kind of makes it the pick if you're going to be clearing dungeons and you're thinking that your group's going to be kind of weak, and it's convenient for the open world too. It does the most healing out of any of the dragons. Disabling the acid spit on it, the ranged attack, will make it do more DPS. It just does more damage if it auto attacks instead. So that's something to keep in mind if you don't have any reason for your pet to be far away, and then just turn that off. The Elder Dragon, I don't know what that model's really called, you know, the big dragon. You can find one of these at the bottom of Bladejed's Mountain. It looks like a big nether drake, but it's classified as a green dragon. I really like this guy for leveling. His auto attacks, like every other hit, healed him for like 5% of his health, and he has a little healer for everyone. Well, for you and himself, I mean. And he's got a 10-second cooldown breath that was quite nice. So I thought he was a pretty good pick. He's who I level with. You know, when I do open world, it's kind of my preferred way to level. So I use him. He kind of keeps us topped off and has that AoE, which is nice. All the green dragons, they don't really scale that well. I think like his heal, it was like 5% of its health at lower levels, and then at level 70 with some gear, it was like less than 2%. Just as nothing. The bronze drakes, right now I could only get my hands on one, which are the ones outside the Caverns of Time. There are bronze whelps, I think, in Blackwing Lair, but I have not been able to get a group together for that. I've tried a few times, and we were either too weak to clear it, which is embarrassing because it's a level 60 raid, or I just couldn't find anybody. So don't know about the rest of them, only can find the drake. It's got that roar sacrifice thing. I don't think it's too good. The red ones, I think the red drakes, the red dragons are so-so. The Wormkin, I think no, it's not called the Wormkin. It's called a Scale Bane. I believe it's a Scale Bane. The melee guys, the melee 4-legged, 4 legs, 2 arms. It's got some AoE, some low cooldown abilities. It uses energy, which I really like. You know, the ones that use mana, like in PvE, they'll just run out of mana and be out of mana for a while unless you have some sort of way to give mana to them, which isn't really worth doing. So I think he's pretty good. He does pretty good damage. I think he's my number two on DPS. The red dragon. You can find them in the wetlands. It's called a red dragon spawn, level 57 elite. The blue dragons, I don't think they're very good at all. They've got range. Some of them have like some utility. It's really not impressive. There is a drake that does what they do better. The black dragons, I think the Scalebane again, he's very similar to the other one. He's got 2 AoE. This guy is also among the top DPS dragons. He's a very good pick, you know, good for leveling because he's got some AoE, and his single target DPS is pretty good too. Pretty good pick for PvE. Him and the red one, it's hard for me to figure out which one does more because the dummies are so close together that the AoEs kind of skew their DPS, but both of them are quite good. And there's a little bit of people think that the black Elder Dragon and the Black Dragnoid, which that's the two-legged Dracnoid, the Draconid maybe. That's the two-legged guys. Which you can find one of these two-legged boys in the Blade's Edge Mountains. But they've both got this 8-second cooldown that does damage, increases their strength by 5%, stacking to 5 times. And this makes people think that these are the boss, like the boss, like the picks for long fights, like boss fights and stuff. But that is not the case. It's 5% strength, which does eventually 25% strength. But level 70 with some gear on, I think my dragon had like 200 or 300 strength. And they're not considered like strength spec. So they don't get a full 1-to-1 attack power ratio out of it. So this 25 strength like translated to like 40 attack power, which is nothing. Not worth using. They also run out of mana. So yeah, don't be fooled by that. If it was 25% attack power, then it'd be something. And also, it didn't work either. Like, it didn't actually increase your strength, but even if it did, the amount of damage would have been really negligible. So don't fall for that. Yeah, I know when I ask when people talk about it in trade chat, they always answer that the Black Draconid and the Black Dragon are the picks, but they're not. I think for AoE, the Black Drake, with his 3-second cooldown swipe, I believe the Red Drake has that too. That's pretty good. Probably the highest highest AoE DPS dragon with a 3-second cooldown swipe. The Red Drake, I believe, has the same one. The Infinite Dragons, these are pretty bad. I hope they're bugged. One of them's got that 6-second cast that deals horrible damage. It's just 6-second cast. You just don't see that every day. So they're pretty bad. I don't know about the rest. There's Infinite Drake and Infinite Dracnoid that are only bosses, so you need a whistle for them. No idea what skills they have. Wouldn't pick those. The Nether Drakes, the Nether Whelp. You can find them in Shadowmoon Valley. If you're Alliance, you can also get them in Blade's Edge Mountains. When you're on the quest, break the eggs. You can tame them when you break an egg if you want something a little more exclusive. But they have the same skills as the ones in Shadowmoon Valley. They have two CCs, which makes them the best pet. They've got the best PvP pet. They got a 1-minute cooldown, does damage and stuns for 3.5 seconds, and they got a 45-second cooldown, causes the target to flee in terror for 6 seconds. Now, it's called Horrify, and it says flee in terror, but I believe it's just a fear. It's not actually it's not like Death Coil, which Death Coil works more like a stun, but it's called a Horrify. But I believe this is just a fear, so it'll break if you do too much damage to them. From what I understand. But still, 2 CCs on 1 pet, extremely good. Again, like with all the ones that are ranged, if you just disable the ranged attack, it does more damage, but since this is a PvP pet, you probably don't want it to get close anyway, because these guys have like 4,000 health and are just going to get blasted. And then the Netherwing Draconid, I think, is the best PvP pet for a melee for sure. Because it's got 45-second cooldown interrupt, 1-minute cooldown shockwave, which AoE stun, and a 30-second cooldown reduce enemy armor by 20% for 10 seconds. So very good pick for melees. I think the casters are probably going to want to lean more towards this whelp, but the Draconid is what I would pick if I were melee. And now here's where something's kind of interesting. These Chromatic Dragons. The Chromatic... what is he called? Scale Bane. You find these in Upper Blackrock Spire. If you enter Blackwing Lair and then leave through the door in Blackwing Lair, like you walk in and then walk right out the instance, you're right next to this boss fight that summons these, and you tame them. It's got a 45-second disarm, whatever. What's important about it is this Chromatic Strike. It's got no cooldown and no cast time, and it doesn't have any flavor text, but... and if you hit it, it'll just stand 30 yards away and not do any damage. But if you micromanage this pet and have it like set to passive and then don't put it to aggressive until you're next to the boss, this pet does the most damage out of most single target damage out of any of the dragons, because it just spams these random melee abilities over and over, and its DPS is higher than all the other dragons. But this is some micromanaging. If you don't want to deal with that, then just go with one of the other colors of Scale Banes. And now this spreadsheet that I'm going to link down below has got the Chromatic Whelps and another type of Scale Bane. I couldn't find the second type of scale Bane. Its skills don't look very good, but I couldn't find it. And the whelp has some interesting looking skills, but when I tamed the whelp, it had no skills. So I've not been able to find a whelp with skills. So I don't know how they got these skills. Maybe Ascension took them out. Apparently this pet did pretty high damage. It didn't have skills last I checked. I still have one, still doesn't have skills. There are a few miscellaneous dragons. The Plague Hatchling, which its skills were not in last time I checked. And a Fey Dragon, which is the Horde's earliest dragon. You get this at level 24 in Stone Talon Mountains. And the Blink Dragon, really not that good. I think its AoE DPS is okay, but on single target it's really bad. You want to turn the mana burn off either way though, because the damage on that is really brutal, so low. Brutal as in low. Okay, and I think that's all we have for today. I'm going to make a guide for, how you should be using these dragons and what builds can maybe run them. I will say, I think they're pretty bad. The scaling on them seems terrible. I think the undead do better damage, and the demons have better AoE and just a little bit more going on usually. But we'll see how these dragons shake out. I don't think they're very good, especially PvP. They seem brutally bad for PvP, except for that whelp and the draconid, but they die so fast. It doesn't seem very good. But stay tuned for those other videos. They're going to be low quality like this one though, probably.